Video games, much like other forms of media, fall under certain genres. Platformers, fighting games, sports games, racing games, visual novels, puzzle games, survival games, RPGs, battle royales, the list goes on. Games of the same genre are bound to have similarities, but once in a while, you'll find games that are more similar than others. There's some games that are blatant copies of others, such as all future sports titles being rip-offs of the critically acclaimed Monsters Inc., Scream Arena, but 99% of the time, it's inspiration. And A Hat in Time is definitely one of those games that are inspired by others preceding it. A Hat in Time is a 3D platforming adventure game developed by indie studio Gears for Breakfast, officially released on October 5th, 2017 for Windows and Mac OS, but has since been made available to PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. A Hat in Time was inspired by many of the early 3D platformers, most notably Super Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. A Hat in Time was funded through a Kickstarter campaign that had raised almost $300,000, surpassing its original $30,000 goal. Even though Kickstarter-backed games have a history of being bad, there have been quite a few fantastic games, such as Undertale and Hollow Knight, and A Hat in Time is definitely one of those good games. A Hat in Time starts off with our protagonist with the hat, fittingly named Hat Kid, waking up while returning home on her spaceship. Passing by a planet, a member of the Mafia comes to her window and tries to collect a toll because even in space, the ship is apparently in Mafia Town. Don't ask me how the member of the Mafia came up here. Hat Kid knocks the Mafia member off the ship, but he somehow comes back and punches a hole through the glass of the ship, creating a vacuum that pulls Hat Kid and all of her timepieces that power the ship onto the planet. All of that, and her reaction is just, okay. Hat Kid crashes into Mafia Town, and the first act of A Hat in Time begins. There's no complicated plot, it's just a simple little story. The gameplay of A Hat in Time made me think of Super Mario 64, especially in the control options. Hat Kid is able to jump, double jump, wall run, wall jump, crawl, dive, and even just watching the game makes you feel like it's Super Mario 64. Around the world are little green capsules called pawns, and they're the currency in A Hat in Time. You'll find pawns just scattered around, in crates, or being dropped after killing enemies. Hat Kid can take 4 hits before perishing, and her health can be recovered by finding heart pawns. The main objective of A Hat in Time is to find the timepieces that fell out of your ship, and you can retrieve those by finishing a task in a specific chapter you're in. And this also feels like Super Mario 64's stars. The worlds in A Hat in Time are, again, like Super Mario 64. They're mostly large and open, with different objectives you can clear to get timepieces, and more timepieces can be found after you collect the previous ones. The worlds are all unique and all give off a completely different vibe and even play differently. Mafia Town is the starting chapter and the first world you're put into. Mafia Town is a large open island that serves as the tutorial area of A Hat in Time. Act 1 of Mafia Town teaches the player basic platforming, while Act 2 is more combat focused. Act 3 has more complicated platforming, and Act 4 serves as the final boss level of Mafia Town. The boss levels aren't just bosses, there's still a level to be had in them. There's still puzzles and platforming. Mafia Town ironically feels very welcoming to the player as they start in A Hat in Time. I said earlier that the worlds in A Hat in Time play differently. I wasn't exaggerating, they all play very differently. For example, Chapter 2, Battle of the Birds, has you start off in a stealth section, then turns into a movie battle between the conductor and DJ Grooves to win the annual Bird Movie Award. Each act is a different, smaller area that's a movie set, and you have to play well in those acts in order to gain points for the movie director, and whoever wins the award slightly changes the ending of the chapter.
This game is called A Hat in Time, isn't it? There's gotta be something about hats or else I'm getting ripped off here.
Yeah, we're getting to that. In each of the chapters, you can find yarn, typically after a puzzle or a platforming section. Collecting yarn allows you to stitch hats, but to stitch certain hats, you must collect at least one of that kind of yarn. Hats grant Hat Kid different abilities, such as the Sprint Hat allowing for faster running, or the Brewing Hat allowing for Hat Kid to throw potions that act as ranged attacks and can also break certain special objects. Hat Kid's hats can also have badges equipped to them. Badges can be purchased from this lovely lad, the badge seller, in exchange for pawns. Most badges are helpful, but some are more helpful than others, such as the Fast Hatter badge lowering the recharge time for using hat abilities. Some are near useless though, such as the Mumble badge, which I'm convinced people only use for when their parents are around so that they don't hear the conductor say the peck word. Well, that's a lot of collectibles, but what if there were even more? Relics are collectibles that can be found like yarn, but they're more hidden compared to the yarn. Relics come in multiple parts, and you can put them together on podiums if you have the right parts. Putting them together results in some funny descriptions of them by Hat Kid, and unlocking a new time rift. What's a time rift, you may ask? We'll get to that now. Time rifts are tears in reality found near broken timepieces. After clearing a certain act, a time rift will appear in that chapter with a little Polaroid showing where it is. Finding a time rift usually needs you to know where that area is, or you'll just be wandering around aimlessly. Inside of a time rift is a Super Mario Sunshine style mini platforming area that is pretty linear and leads to a timepiece. While it may sound like a drag to do, the great music in the time rifts and the platforming in A Hat in Time being really fun makes the time rift something that I want to do instead of just being something that I have to do. There are two kinds of time rifts, the blue ones, which I just described, but there are also purple ones which appear after completing a relic. Purple time rifts are themed around the specific chapter that it's found in, and purple time rifts also consist of multiple areas instead of just a large one platforming challenge, and to progress to the next room, you have to collect a certain amount of rift pawns and open up a pipe. Purple time rifts also contain storybook pages which tell a story if you collect them all. Completing any time rift unlocks some neat little collectibles such as a hat flare, which changes your hat's appearance, a remix of a music track, or an alternate color palette that you can apply onto Hat Kid. Then I mentioned there are a lot of collectibles in this game. There are usually acts within each chapter that cannot be completed without a hat or a badge from a later level. For example, Battle of the Birds Act 4 Train Rush cannot be completed without the Hookshot badge from Subcon Forest Act 2. Even if it's not mandatory to have one of the items, there are many collectibles that can only be obtained using hats from later levels, such as yarn or relics. When it comes to replayability within the levels, A Hat in Time has a lot of it. You'll be revisiting each chapter multiple times. What I believe to be A Hat in Time's strong points are the gameplay, the level design, the writing, the boss fights, and the music. Gameplay-wise, even though Hat Kid has fewer control options compared to other platforming game characters, it never feels unfun to control Hat Kid. The double jump, diving, and wall running alone makes Hat Kid an absolute joy to play as, making her feel nimble and the platforming in the game feeling satisfying. The levels in A Hat in Time are incredible. I've already talked about Mafia Town, but I want to say more about it and the other levels. Mafia Town doesn't really look like a normal island. It's got strange architecture, it's got a giant floating island being suspended by a huge geyser, it's got bald Russian men that all look the same wandering around, but it's that uniqueness that makes it charming. The Battle of the Birds movie sets and missions are incredibly fun, and I particularly like the two on the conductor side, Murder on the Owl Express and Train Rush. Murder on the Owl Express is a full-on stealth game where you have to evade the CAW agent's line of sight while looking around the train for clues on who murdered one of the express owls. Train Rush causes anxiety. Train Rush starts with Hat Kid activating a bomb on the train, and she has to race to the front of the train before the bomb goes off. The music doesn't help with the panic that you'll feel, but it's really good. Oh, and there's an achievement that you can get by completing Train Rush without collecting any of the watches that delay the bomb's detonation. I did it without the time stop hat on my first playthrough and I was fucking sweating. Subcon Forest is the third chapter of A Hat in Time. In Subcon Forest, a shadowy entity known as the Snatcher steals Hat Kid's soul and forces her to sign contracts that has her do dirty work, such as cleaning out the Subcon well or delivering mail. Okay. Each act is a different contract, and completing every contract is necessary to reach the ending of Chapter 3. Mafia Town and Subcon Forest were already incredibly open, sprawling locations with secrets in many nooks and crannies, but Alpine Skyline is the most open of them all. Alpine Skyline feels like a world in Super Mario Odyssey. It's got timepieces on each of the 4 main islands, and Alpine Skylines feels so free and open to play in. The writing in this game is phenomenal. I like jokes, we all like jokes unless you're a fucking monster, and A Hat in Time is absolutely filled with comedy. This game is fully voiced, by the way. Pretty impressive.
Vaults around city belong to Mafia. No touch. Haha. Mafia joking. Child can't open vault. Vault secured with code. Wait, Mafia code not in pocket.
The Mafia goons in Mafia Town all look like the same person, even down to the way they dress, and they speak in broken sentences that are all usually cartoonishly evil.
If small child get gambling problem, it's her own fault. These roulette tables purely for looks. No gambling here.
The conductor, voiced by Xander Mobus, who is also known for voicing... Wow. Okay. Looking cool, Peckneck. The conductor is loud with a heavy Scottish accent, known for repeatedly saying peck, which in the Hat in Time universe is considered the F word.
This movie studio is too big for the both of us, DJ. Grooves. The movie should be made by real birds. You moon penguins are just gonna write some loud, noisy dribble. If I wanted a bunch of picnics to dance around while on birdseed, ha! I'd visit my grandchildren.
It's the accent and the screaming that really does it for me, especially when he says the word murderer.
Ooh, you're giving me the quiet treatment, eh? That's what a murderer would do.
Xander Mobus did a really good job for the voice of him. The Snatcher is a comically evil character with a deep, sexy voice done by Luke Sizemore, commonly known as Youngtown, and his lines are just gold. I'll just play some of them for you.
Expecting a new victim to slip in my traps. I've already taken your soul and everything. Don't take it personal, kid, but stay clear of my traps. There's only so many times my voice can handle yelling like that. You're taking the experience away from other people. What's up, kiddo? You don't know where to go? You're supposed to be cleaning the well, kid. It's deep, inside the swamp, but it's big enough even a tiny thing like you can't miss it. Try not to trip and hit your head at the bottom.
Even in general, almost all of the dialogue in this game is hilarious, and there's many clever jokes in the game. For example, there are Crow Agent Watch agents in the Murder of the Owl Express Act. A group of crows is called a murder. They're a murder on the Owl Express. The Caw agents also ask many questions in the beginning of the act, which range from asking for your favorite combination of letters and numbers to the name of your pet's pet. They can be anything you want as long as they fit in the character limit, and they're used later in the act, and it's hilarious. I mean, my uncle's sister's maiden name is Subscribe, we all know that. In the first act of Battle of the Birds, Hat Kid gets billed for many things, including, but not limited to, trespassing, destruction of property, owl harassment, TPTKO, and assault on cactus. During one of the movies made by DJ Grooves, you're able to have him endorse you on your quest to gather fans in the movie. Grooves tells Hat Kid not to say the peck word, and of course, one of the options in the following prompt is peck. If you didn't pick it, I'm convinced you hate fun.
Darling!
The boss fights in A Hat in Time are plenty of fun. The three standout bosses to me are the Mafia Boss, the Conductor or DJ Grooves, and the Snatcher. The Mafia Boss is a great entry big boss in this game. The Mafia Barrel Battle, it technically counts as boss, but it's easy as piss. He has some pretty cool looking attacks that can easily be countered once you learn how to. Great for a beginner boss. He can also use Power Wave and somehow shoot electricity from himself and even get the Mafia Ball out. Yes, it's as goofy as it sounds. The boss fight music for the Mafia Boss is also incredible and has the Mafia Town leitmotif in it. I said the Conductor or DJ Grooves because the one you fight is depending on who wins the Battle of the Birds, but the only differences are the dialogue during the boss fight. I'll call this boss fight the Director to save myself from saying the Conductor and DJ Grooves over and over. The boss fight with the Director uses many references to the movies that you helped the directors make, such as literally attacking Hat Kid with a knife, probably illegal, with the Conductor saying that, "This one ain't rubber," referencing the rubber knife that was used in the Murder on the Owl Express. The parade from The Big Parade shows up during the fight too. The music in the fight is also very good, but we'll get to the music in a bit. The Snatchers boss fight is my absolute favorite in this game just because of how fun it is. The boss fight has many attacks that aren't too hard to dodge, but it usually requires more than one attempt. At the beginning of the fight, the Snatcher takes Hat Kid's hat, which disallows all hat abilities, making the fight harder. In boss fights, usually the boss turns blue when they're vulnerable, but the Snatcher outright states that blue doesn't suit him, and to turn him blue, you have to use one of his flasks that contain a blue concoction and throw it right back at him, which begins phase 2 of the boss fight, which is even more chaotic than the last. This is extremely clever game design fitting the Snatcher's fourth wall breaking character. All of that tough talk coming from a wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. You know, how about you people watching the video right now turn that like button blue as well? All you gotta do is click it. You might as well comment on the video and subscribe to the channel while you're at it. It's guaranteed to help you defeat the Snatcher. Again, amazing boss fight music, my favorite track in the entire game, but we'll get to that right now. I love a good video game OST that I can have playing while I work, and A Hat in Time's OST is one that I have playing a lot. A Hat in Time's OST heavily utilizes leitmotifs, which are recurrent themes throughout a musical composition associated with a particular person, idea, or situation. Yes, I read that off of Google's definition. It really works in its favor though. I'm gonna dedicate this little section to just playing parts of tracks in A Hat in Time's OST. To prevent this video from being longer than the line at McDonald's right now, I'm only allowed to play small segments from 7 tracks. I like a lot more than 7 of the tracks in A Hat in Time, but I can only fit so many, and a lot of the other ones will be heard throughout the video as background music. Alright, go. A Hat in Time is a fantastic game, but no game is perfect and the viewers love hearing people bitch about things, so here we are. This is a problem for most 3D platforming games, but the camera is janky as hell at times. I played A Hat in Time on PC and the camera was controlled by the mouse and it sometimes just didn't work right. I know that in certain areas that the camera is locked to one angle, but that just doesn't work out well. I also have problems with the final boss of A Hat in Time. The final boss itself isn't the problem, it's a really good one. It's the arena that you fight it in. I'm not going to show footage of it because, spoilers, but also because the arena is a rainbow-colored skybox that changes colors very often, so flashing lights. It hurt my eyes to play through. What's worse is that during the second phase of the boss, the game soft-locked, and I wasn't the only person that had experienced this glitch, so I had to replay the entire final boss level over again, and fight the boss back up to that point. That was hell. A Hat in Time's main story is a bit short. While replaying the game, it took me about 2 days to finish the game, and while it's not too big of an issue because there's a lot of replayability when it comes to collectibles, I'd like it if there were a bit more. And there is! With the 2 DLC for A Hat in Time, you can unlock the Arctic Cruise and the Yakuza Metro chapters. I don't have the DLC. I should probably get it. My last complaint is probably the biggest one. Now, most of A Hat in Time plays like a cutesy platformer where you meet funny characters and beat up the bad guys. Subcon Forest Act 4, Queen Vanessa's Manor. Right off the bat, you're asked to go to this old haunted mansion out in the middle of nowhere. And outside that manor are 2 statues that behave like the Weeping Angel statues in that they'll chase you if you look away from them. They're not that big of an issue if you know they're there. The real game begins inside of the manor. You're not allowed to use your hat abilities, and when you enter the first floor, the game shifts into a stealth horror game with jump scares and the like. Yeah, I'm gonna need a new pair of pants after that. I'm sparing you all the horror that I went through when I first played this, so no footage of it. And I'm also telling you that there is a secret shortcut in the basement where you start off in so that you can skip the horror segment. While I'm sure many people enjoyed the shift in tone, I did not, and I legitimately had to play my calming music playlist while playing through this level because I got so surprised by it going from cutesy platformer to shit my pantsville. Overall, A Hat in Time is a great game that's worth your money, and though I'm not so sure about certain aspects, a large majority of the game is an absolute blast. I'd highly recommend playing the game, and coming from a guy who hasn't played the DLC, you should probably play the DLC. I've heard that the Death Wish mode in Seal the Deal is exactly what it sounds like, so if you're up for a challenge, try it out. The camera is a bit wonky at times, and the background for the final boss isn't exactly pleasing to the eyes, but it's a very fun game. There's many references to past 3D platformers, games, or even just other media, such as the parade being like the shadow clones in Super Mario Galaxy games, the act called Heating Up Mafia Town being directly inspired by the Goopy Inferno from Super Mario Sunshine, the Murder on the Orient Express being named after the book Murder on the Orient Express, there being an achievement called Personally, I Prefer the Air, and the Snatcher being pretty similar to an evil chest from Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. Being inspired by something or referencing something doesn't make a product bad, I mean, why would it? And A Hat in Time shows that very well. There's an active modding community too that adds a lot of hilarious stuff into the game, so if you want to try some of those out, go for it. A Hat in Time gets an 8.5 out of 10 from me for being a game that improves upon the early 3D platformer formula, but having some minor problems. I've been recording this entire video in the line at McDonald's, and I'm getting some pretty strange looks, so I should probably order my food. Hi, can I get one Earthling sitting device?